Hey guys, and welcome back to Boxmining. In this sponsored video, we talked to the guys at Energimine. The problem they're trying to solve is this. We've all heard about switch off those lights after you leave the room, turn off air conditioning for an hour to save the planet. But there's no real incentive to do so. I mean, polar bears can't write us a letter to thank us for saving the world. So what they're trying to do is they're trying to give us cryptocurrencies instead as a direct incentive to save energy. So they're building out a platform where every time you do take public transport or you do switch up the light, you get an incentive to do so. So I talked to their CEO, Omar, and I grilled him about a few tough questions about how they're going to build out the platform. Then, of course, why do they even need a token? And how are they going to partner up to make this whole system work? Hey guys, I'm here with Omar Rahim, the CEO of Energimine, and he's got quite an interesting project related to energy saving and tokenization. So, Omar, how did you come up with an idea like this?
Yeah, so basically, the Energy Token project is all about rewarding energy saving behavior. So my background personally, I worked for a load of very large energy companies, energy funds. And the problem really is that we all agree that moving to a low carbon, a low energy consumption economy is a good thing. But the business model that we have now is energy companies want to sell more energy and they get money for selling more energy. So, having spent 10 or 15 years trading energy, we thought, okay, how can we come up with a model, a tokenized model that rewards saving energy? So, in 2016, we came with the idea and we've really sort of taken our time with this project. And the Energy Token project is all about allowing people to make money from being green.
Okay, so it's a reward for being green. Now, how would that work? So how would I, as an average person, how would I be rewarded for being green? Like, because I take public transport or because I turn off?
Yeah, absolutely. You can earn a token in a number of ways. So you gave a good example there of taking public transport, reducing carbon emissions, buying energy efficient appliances, those kind of activities that really help the environment. Now we're trying to match that type of behavior, which is not too different because changing human behavior is one of the hardest things that you can do. So if you're taking tasks that people are doing day to day in their lives anyway, and you're rewarding that with a body or an institution who are interested in rewarding that type of behavior, like a local transport authority or your employer. By matching those two, really, you create a scenario where you're getting financially rewarded with our token for doing things like taking the metro to work instead of taking your car, or buying an energy efficient washing machine, for example.
Okay. So this is kind of like connecting some sort of authority, which or transportation or some sort of company that does transportation, and they reward you in the form of energy tokens for being green. So, for example, if I take the metro, then in that case, who would pay me the energy token? Would it be the metro company that pays me, or the electrical company that pays me?
Yeah, so largely this is so the example that we gave there, it would be the local transport authority or local government. So for them, it is really displacing cost elsewhere. If you've got more, bad air quality, higher traffic, with a productivity cost, the cost of repairing roads, building car parks, local governments are spending this money anyway, but they're spending it badly. It's far cheaper for them to reward people and drive people toward public transport to do that. The same would apply for an employer. If you're an employer and you're saving energy in the workplace, your employer can give you tokens for turning off the computer, turning off lights, turning off machinery, for example. And they would benefit by consuming less energy and obviously saving money as a business. So it's kind of the situation where everyone wins.
Okay, so in the case of the government, so this is going to be the hard question for you. So you're talking about an extra token in the form of reward, but why don't they just cut costs on transportation instead? So if it's the local authorities, the transportation authority, why don't they just cut, 20 cents off metro instead of giving you 20 cents worth of extra tokens?
Yeah, so it's definitely been tried before, making transport cheaper. It's very difficult for governments to balance their budgets. And, one of the things that we've been very keen to do is that, changing the behavior of governments obviously takes time. and you need an intimate knowledge of really how governments think. It's the reason why we've got a member of the UK Parliament on our core team, because we really want an insight into how governments, both national and local, think. So giving a reward mechanism is much more effective than cutting prices, because after a while, the price cut, people forget about the price cut. It's human nature. So if you're suddenly paying for something, you're paying a bit less, that will increase behavior that you want in the short term, but in the long term, you start taking it for granted. Whereas earning a reward that you can just see on an app builds up over time, and it seems to trigger a change in behavior a lot more successfully.
So it's kind of like a gamification of energy saving then. In that sense, oh, I'm kind of like leveling up. I'm getting more energy tokens, like, okay. So in that sense, okay, so you got this idea of saving energy. Then how do you track it? I mean, for transportation, I guess that's easier to track because you can, every time you put your card on a transportation device, you can track it. But how about, like, say let's say an example of saying a company is, switching off a computer or something like that. How would you track this sort of behavior?
Yeah, absolutely. So where there is good data, we're trying not to reinvent the wheel here. So where there's a good data feed, there's a good API that we can link into, like a transportation system. It's pretty straightforward how that would work. Saving energy in the workplace also, our core business and the background of our team as energy traders and managers of energy, we manage energy on behalf of corporates worldwide. Our tech's already in 1,000 buildings, and we do that by monitoring, plugging our data into the smart meters at these companies. So we're already tracking how much energy our clients are using. So this is something that's kind of second nature to us. So if we're already tracking the data in the workplace, we can then really zero in on the effect that energy tokens are having on human behavior. If company X is spending $1 million a year on energy, with the implementation of energy token, if they're now spending $900,000 a year, we can put that $100,000 saving down to the energy token scheme.
Right, and that depends on the company, though, right? So the company will be like, "Hey, look, we're going to reward the employees like this." But how do I zero in on which exact employee made the contribution, or what exact process did it? Or is it just kind of like a group endeavor sort of thing?
Yeah, it really depends on the company. We have enough flexibility within our tech to allow the kind of bespoking of the system depending on the company. So if you think of an office building and you might have a target of energy saving per floor of that office building. Now you might have 100 people on the floor.
Okay.
The energy manager or the CFO, the finance director of the company might really not care about which individuals are saving energy. They just want the collective result. So they may decide to reward everybody equally. Now, another company might want to know exactly who is saving energy more than others. So they can bespoke their scheme, and when we set up the systems for them, we can really set those parameters, whether they want to target the individual or whether they want to do that on a sort of a group basis. Because as you correctly say, some things are really easy to track, like how somebody's commuting to work. Other things are more difficult, and it's easy to look at on a kind of a macro scale.
Okay, cool. So it's all about gamification and being able to track and using APIs that you with the companies are already working with. So there are definitely a few questions. How many partnerships have you signed up for this? How many companies are willing to take part? And then, of course, the second question is, what's the development status of this project?
Sure. So on the partnerships front, we have a number of high-profile partnerships across the globe, really. So I'll mention some of them, but not all of them here. So one of the biggest ones we have, one of the biggest users of energy in the UK is Network Rail, our train systems. So they're spending, hundreds of millions of dollars a year on energy. So we're working now to put the trial live for them to incentivize their employees to save energy in the workplace. So that's going to be a sort of fantastic trial from one of the largest users in the UK. Going on the other end of the spectrum, where we think there's going to be a big demand for this scheme is going to be in the hospitality industry. So I'm sure everybody's been to a hotel and you see those little signs in the bathroom that say, if you get your bedding and your towels changed every 2 days instead of every 1 day, you're going to be helping the environment. So what we're saying is that, why not give someone a tangible reward to do that rather than instead of making a moral argument, we want to make a financial argument. So there's a big hotel group and a conglomerate in Korea that we're working with. The hotel the first hotel in the world to trial this is called Hotel Cappuccino, based in Seoul. So right now you can earn the token by staying in the hotel and making certain, just by staying, they'll give you some energy tokens because it's sort of an eco-conscious hotel. But further behavior when you're in the hotel, you can also use that to further own tokens.
Okay. What's the development process? Is the app out? Can we readily use that? What's the status of that?
Yeah, definitely. So we already have an app that's available to use. You can already earn energy tokens if you sign up to one of a number of our partnerships. So, for example, if you drive an electric vehicle, you can earn some ETK right now by going and downloading the app and registering, providing proof of purchase. You can earn some energy tokens right now. So generally, in terms of the technology, we're 4 phases into a 6-phase plan of our tech. So since February, the tech team's been really busy with the head down building out the tech. So it's already a usable product, and we're building the ecosystem as every month goes by.
Okay, so I can actually just download the app right now and start for some registering some purchases, and then eventually staying at hotels, and then and if additional companies sign up for it. Okay, so in terms of tech that you're using right now, so how are you using blockchain technology?
Yeah. So as stated, we're obviously building on the Ethereum blockchain. And what's really important here is the ability to sort of track behavior with a sort of minimum amount of friction. So what I mean by that is, not everyone's as passionate as me and our team about energy and saving energy. But the point is that not everyone has to be. For good technology to thrive, it really needs to work in the background. People don't necessarily care if it's a token, if it's blockchain, if there's AI in there, which there is. The technology just has to work. So we're really focused on delivering that kind of frictionless experience as much as possible. So the blockchain element is obviously the tokens are standard ERC20 token, and blockchain for us is really important to be able to identify you, track behavior, and really enable you to sort of earn rewards in multiple locations from multiple different services.
Okay, so is that kind of behavior being tracked on chain or off chain? So is it in a centralized or decentralized manner?
So at the moment, it's being done on chain. Now, what we're looking at is at the moment we're talking almost human to human. So when we look at human interaction and the amount of transactions that are required, something like the Ethereum blockchain will do the job. It's enough for us now. What we mentioned in our white paper is that unless Ethereum scales significantly, we're going to be looking to move towards our own chain to really enable the kind of transaction for a machine-to-machine economy. So where we're seeing a big implementation in the future of energy token is in the IoT space. Obviously, the energy markets are what we know. Energimine, as a company, our ambition is that every time a machine or a human interacts with the energy market, we'll be the enabling technology. So you really start to get into problems if you're processing the number of transactions that that IoT devices, billions of connected devices, will bring onto the system. And that's why we're announcing that we're starting to build out our own chain.
Oh, really? So so initially right now you're on ERC20 on your own network, on Ethereum network, but you want to build your own chain for kind of this energy saving of IoT devices.
Absolutely. So at the moment, the Ethereum blockchain does the job for us. We're pretty sure that given our sort of ambitions that's not going to be the case if Ethereum doesn't scale enough. So we're launching our own chain, Energy Chain, which really uses the best of blockchain and Hashgraph. That's where we see the future of the sort of machine-to-machine economy.
That's interesting. So you're using Hashgraph for that, but isn't Hashgraph kind of they're patented, so you can't fork off the technology or use parts of it?
So we're using it in a way, so we're using existing technology, but what's unique about it is the way that we're using that technology. So to explain to you briefly, we're building a network of smart plugs. So there's the hardware play here that we've been working on for the last few months. And those smart plugs will act as nodes on a network. So really, we're making mining very accessible to the mass market. So you no longer have to have a rig, have knowledge of how it operates, and download a wallet, which is quite niche and specific. And what we're really trying to do is make it as seamless as possible. If you can manage to plug in a socket into a wall, you're able to operate a node on our network.
So it's like kind of back in the good old days of mining where like they were shoving ASICs into plugs, but in your case, you're doing some form of more computational heavy stuff, right? So what do these plugs kind of like do on the network?
Yep. So a couple of things. So number one, they act as smart meters. So for example, in Europe, where smart meters are perhaps more common, there's 450 million people that will need a smart plug to measure the current coming through, so you can start to track how much energy you're using. So first and foremost, the plugs act as a smart plug, and we're looking to really push those more and more in the Asian markets now, as awareness of energy consumption sort of raises in Asia. The second thing, and the really smart thing about the plugs, is that they each contain a processor. So think of the plugs as a mini computer that can complete processing tasks on the network, meaning that we can outsource data processing tasks to the network. And if you own these smart plugs, of course, you'll get a reward for doing that.
Oh, cool. So you have basically a better tracking of energy usage on a certain plug, and then it can also multitask and function as computational for the network. That's a kind of interesting idea. So now, okay, bring this all together. So you're rewarding people for saving energy so that you're kind of creating a new gameplay there and creating a new kind of separate incentive program for energy saving. And then you're expanding that ambition into your own chain and smart plugs, hardware plays. So, okay, so this all relates to the energy token. Now, okay, so what gives the token value and what kind of makes it increase? What would increase its value to?
Sure, yeah, good question. So we have a limited supply of the token, and the token really gains value the more that it's being used. So the more partners we bring on board, the bigger the ecosystem is, the more value they'll come to the token. That's particularly relevant as we move on to our own chain. For example, initially the only way you'll be able to buy a smart plug will be by buying it in ETK.
Okay, got it. So you can buy it in ETK. Okay, and then this will be for using in there, but that can't be the only reason to use ETK, right? Are there any other uses for it, or?
Yeah, absolutely. There are a number of uses for it. So we've already covered the bits about earning the token, for example, taking public transport, buying energy efficient goods. In terms of spending the token, you can spend the token on hiring electric vehicles. So we've done a number of partnerships which will be on the website in terms of electric vehicle hire. You'll be able to charge your EV with the tokens, and also you'll be able to pay your residential energy bill with the tokens as well. So a part of the advantage of having been in the sector for 15 years and having sort of contacts and connections within the energy sectors worldwide, we have customers across the world existing. Companies and energy companies are now looking into accepting the token as part payment for your energy bill.
Okay. So it's all about just transferring value, but you still have to deal with one issue, which is the token price can fluctuate. So are you expecting companies to buy ETK to pay, I guess, someone saving energy like on public transport, or companies to pay employees? So they're expected to buy the ETK off the open markets and then reward that to the individual user, right?
So that's exactly right. The volatility in cryptocurrencies is a given. We're still at a very early stage in this technology. And, given the infancy of this technology, you are going to see cryptocurrencies fluctuate. We've seen that even with so-called stable coins fluctuating wildly. So it's not a big surprise to us in the industry that you're going to have this fluctuation. The way we overcome that is, yes, we're selling to corporations, which is our core market, the B2B market, in terms of buying tokens. What we're suggesting to all corporations is that they're initially buying the amount of tokens they need in fiat. So this is a way to overcome the problem. Let's take an example. If somebody a manufacturer was using ETK to incentivize buying an energy efficient fridge freezer, for example, the reward that was given at the start might be worth $20. With the volatility, it might be worth $200 by the end of the year or the end of the month. So what we're saying is that companies will transact in a fiat amount of tokens, the equivalent of ETK. And this really gets around the risk of companies buying an ETK too early and the value fluctuating wildly.
Okay. So I think at the end of the day, the tokenomics is all about saving energy, providing a pathway for the electrical industry itself to save energy. I think that's what you're doing as a core. And then your ambition is to have a network of smart plugs, right?
Absolutely, yeah. And I always like to go back to this idea that we've tried as a planet, as governments, to incentivize and make us feel guilty about wasting energy. What I call making a moral argument for saving energy. And what we're saying is that a far easier way to get the same outcome is to make a financial argument. And we believe we've come up with a business model that will allow people to earn money from being green, and as a consequence, we'll be saving carbon emissions and using less energy as a planet. We're very realistic about how much people care about energy. This should be something that you carry on your daily life with, and our technology works seamlessly in the background. So that's what we're always focused on, is achieving that end goal and doing it as seamlessly as possible.
Excellent. And, I really hope that this can make the planet a little bit greener. I mean, at the end of the day, energy cost is all about extraction costs, but it does harm our planet. So hopefully this project can really bring about a change. So Omar, thank you so much for coming us and sharing with your ideas. Of course, is there any particular call to action that you want people to do?
Yeah, I mean, I would encourage people to find out more information by going to energimine.com and joining our Telegram groups, where our team will be happy to sort of answer any questions and particularly give you updates as we progress the technology. We'd love to hear what your viewers have to say.
Thank you so much, Omar, for coming here.
No problem. Thanks.